Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make the base of a handler to manually check the input device of your game, such as if it is mouse, keyboard, mouse and keyboard, or a gamepad such as a PlayStation or Xbox controller. After we create the input check handler, I will then make a menu to display a simple function that this handler could be used for. This function will be to change the visibility of the mouse cursor and the current button selection when we transition between mouse and gamepad. Okay, so in order to make the input check handler, we're going to click Other Node. We're going to make a basic node with no other features on it. Let us just rename this to input check. And let us add a script to it. And we're going to call this script check underscore input underscore device. Alright, now within the script, we're going to give it a class name that is check input device, and we're going to make a static variable called isMouse, set that equal to true. In our ready function, we're going to do process underscore mode equal to node.process underscore mode always. Oops. I'm gonna save that scene real quick. See here, we're going to create an input function. Event. The event is going to be input event. And now we're going to create an if else, and it is going to checks for if the input device is mouse or gamepad. The first if is going to be if the event is input event mouse motion is mouse equal to true. I forgot to do this. We're gonna add or event is input mouse event button. And we're gonna create an else if. We're gonna do event is input event joypad button, or event is input event joypad motion. And if that is true, we're going to do is mouse equal to false. Save that real quick. Oops, forgot to add a semicolon. Process delta, we don't need this, so we're just going to delete that. And now we're going to add a static function called static function get underscore input underscore type. And this is just going to return is mouse, or variable. Okay, so I already explained what this does right here. This is going to check if our input device is mouse or gamepad. What we do in the ready function, this makes it so that the input check is always running, even if the game is paused or not. And then our static function right here, get input type, this is what's going to be called within our menus and other parts that you want to add this to, so that you can always check if a mouse or a gamepad is being used. Okay. So while this base for the input check handler might work out well, there is one problem. If you have a controller that has stick drift on it, it will be detected constantly. And I know this due to the fact that the controller I have has stick drift. And whenever I was trying to test this out, I realized that very quickly, the built-in Godot like dead zone check isn't there with this code. So in order to make sure that our stick drift doesn't affect us by having the controller detected all the time when, say, we're using mouse and keyboard, we're going to make our own dead zone check. And with that, you're going to make a function. We're going to call that dead zone underscore check. We're going to do var dead zone equal to 0.5. You can use whatever number that you want. This is just going to be the base number that is already used by Godot for all of the dead zone checks on the regular inputs. Okay, and now we're also going to make a variable called joystick vector, and we're going to create a vector2, and stay with me here. We do input.get underscore joy access. We're going to do 0, 0, and then we're going to do negative input dot get underscore joy access, and we're going to do 0, 1, and then on the outside of the parentheses for that we're going to do dot length. Save that real quick, and now we're going to return dead zone is less than joystick underscore vector, and that will be our dead zone check function. And just to reiterate what this is, if we do not have this, a controller that has stick drift will constantly be telling the input check a controller is in use. So how do we implement this function and make it to where it works properly? We're going to go to our else if from before, and we're going to put parentheses around it. And we're doing it specifically on this one for the input joypad motion, because a dead zone check is for when you have a gamepad, stick being moved. So we have to have an and here. We're going to do dead zone underscore check, just like that. And there we go. We now have a completed input check module, or node, that can be used with any part of the game that you want. And I'll be showing that in an example coming up. Before I make that example though, we need to do one extremely important step. We need to go to our project settings, click Autoload, and then we need to open our file explorer, and then we need to auto-load the input check scene. We're going to click add. See, that's enabled right there as a global variable. There we go. This makes it to where, like I said at the end, that we can call it from any part of the program now, and it'll always be running as well. Now we're going to make the example menu. We're going to do new scene. We're going to type in main menu. Open this up, 2D editor. We will add new nodes to this. We're going to add a VBox container. And then we're going to add 3 buttons. We're going to add C. Move this back down. There we go. And then I'll just do it through here again. All right, so we have 3 buttons here. Going to just rename this to start button. Settings button. And the quit button. We're gonna now make this VBox container at least a little bit legible. Gonna put start, settings, quit. Gonna click VBox container. Let us just move this towards the center. Right around here should be good. And let's click on the VBox container. And let's see here. You want to look at layout. You want to open this transform. So your menu will look like this. Click right here. Click transform. And we're going to set the scale to 1.5 just so things can be a little bit easier for us to see when we go into opening the scene. And now if we run the scene, we can just quickly see that, yep, everything's there. And we have no buttons working right now. Now we're going to want to set up the base script for the main menu. So let us just attach a script, call it main menu GD, that's fine. we're not going to need this process function, so we're just going to delete that. And our ready function, we're not going to need as well. So for now, it's just going to be an empty script that just has extends control. And now we're going to click start button. We're going to go to node and then, or my bad, quit button on pressed. And we're just going to click connect. All right, so now when the quit button is pressed, we're going to want to set this to be git underscore tree dot quit. See, I have an error. It's not callable. I see. Right here, I forgot to add some parentheses. Oh well. That's fine. And what this does is it just makes it to where we can now see that one of the buttons does work because it will quit out of the menu. And this is how we're going to check whether mouse or controller does work with the menu buttons. Okay, now we're finally going to implement our input check handler. And to do that, we're going to make our input function underscore input event. We're just going to do input event. And then we're going to do if check input device dot get input type. And since our isMouse is true, this first if is gonna be if we're running mouse or keyboard. And then to do this, we will do input dot mouse underscore mode equal to input dot mouse underscore mode visible. And then we're gonna have an else. And if this first if isn't true, then we're going to be using a controller or just keyboard by itself. And with that, we would do input.mouse underscore mode equal to input.mouse underscore mode underscore captured. And what this does is it centers our mouse and it makes it invisible to where that way it doesn't get in the way, you know, it doesn't go outside of the window and say maybe deselect it. And that way when the user uses the mouse again, it will reappear from the center, so that way it's easy for them to find again. And we can see this quickly with our example. As you can see, I'm moving my mouse. I'm going to pick up my controller. And as you can see, I'm moving my left stick and it makes the mouse go away. When I move it again, do this right here, do that. And as you can see, the mouse disappears. Now, one thing I did forget to do is I need to do vbox container / start button dot grab underscore focus. And what this does is this allows the controller to actually show you what buttons it's going to be selecting. Project settings, cancel. Let me run the scene real quick. Here we go. And as you can see, we see the start. Looks like my mouse is messing up right now. Oh, no, I see what it is. So essentially with this, we could see that a bug has appeared now to where because the controller is being inputted, it's constantly going. So we need to change this to where it will only run if a controller hasn't already been detected as the current input device. Because this if and else if is mainly checking for the transitions between, not if we're currently in one right now. So with that, we're going to do else if input dot mouse underscore mode is not equal to input dot mouse underscore mode captured, we will then run this. And as you can see here, that should fix this. Yeah, see that we can now see move it around, and when I go down to the bottom, we have the quit selected, start, settings. I don't have any select buttons currently in place. I would need to go into the project settings real quick. I'll just do that later. But for now, it should be working just fine. Although there's still more that I need to show because there are a few bugs that will need to be fixed real quick, just so things don't look so goofy towards the end. Okay, so we're going to add the accept button for our controller, just so y'all can see. Joypad buttons right here. And that, and then it's going to be joypad button 0. Close. Save. Let's run the scene real quick. Okay, you see how I have mouse, and then I can move the controller down, and I'm going to click X on my controller real quick. There we go. You can see that it quits. So our controller is now working, and we can continue on with testing. Okay, so now the next part that I'm going to show you is to remove two things that I found kind of annoying that I couldn't figure out how to do with an easy method with Godot 4.2. I do believe 4.3 does fix one thing, which is the grab and release focus. They added a method called GUI underscore release underscore focus. But for now, I'm going to be showing this as for the 4.2, and the solution that I found is mainly just hard coding. And what I mean by focus is when I move the controller down, you see how start has that white border around it. All right, move it down the settings, and now I move my mouse. That white border is still there, it doesn't go away, which still gives my controller the ability to click, right? Another thing is hover. Now, I don't believe Godot has an option to fix this in their 4.3 update, so this is another kind of thing that you're gonna have to hard code to get rid of. It's kind of annoying. You could disable defocus or hovers, by the way, from the inspector within Godot, but I would kind of not advise that, simply due to that might make styling buttons much harder for you down the line. So what I'm going to show here is this hover kind of bug / glitch is when I move my controller. You see that settings is still hovered over. If I hover over quit, as you can see, quit is still hovered over, which shows that the mouse is still kind of there. And if I were to click with the mouse, for all you care, it could work and it could not, depending on how someone's mouse buttons are set up and the accepts that they have on it. Now, moving on, in order to fix that, we need to go to the first part of our if over here, and we're going to do if input dot mouse underscore mode is equal to input dot mouse underscore mode visible. Click there and indent that. Now we want this if to be inside of, not equal to. We want this if to not be on the same line as our first check here, because if it is, then we'll constantly be pinging down towards the second else if, and that would mean, oh, because we're not encaptured, right? Even though say we're using our mouse, it will always be detecting that we're using a controller when that shouldn't be the case, right? We want the default setting to be that we are always having our mouse being used, not that we're using our controller or something else, okay? You could switch this actually. If, let's say for instance, you change is mouse with an input check to be false instead of true originally. Now back to our main menu. We are going to remove the focus that is automatically there after you use the controller. just going to copy and paste this line. And we're going to change this to release focus. This is kind of the hard coding that I was talking about. What's essentially going to be happening here is that we know start is always going to be on our menu. So we are going to move the focus to the start button, and then we're going to release the focus. We can't just say release focus be on a button that doesn't have focus within it, because if we did that, it would cause our game to crash, which is really unfortunate. And I thought about iterating through each of the buttons one by one, but Godot doesn't seem to have an easy way of doing that. And at the same time, you know, that could reach a very high runtime depending on how you have, you know, the number of buttons that you have set up within your menu. Now, the method that I was talking about that could work in 4.3 instead of these two lines is going to look like this: release underscore focus. I don't know how that would work, but if you are using Godot 4.3, you can try using GUI underscore release underscore focus. And I have a typo. Oh no, I didn't fix it. There we go. Okay, now moving on, I'm going to show you how to remove the hover that is always there. And so we're going to go down here, and this is going to be VBox container, and it's just going to be every single button that we have, and then we're going to do mouse underscore filter equal to 2. Then let me just do VBox container settings button, VBox container quit button, mouse underscore filter equal to 2. Filter equal to 2. And so what this does is, if I pull up the inspector, let me click on, say, this button for instance, and we scroll down to our control, and then we look at mouse, and there's also focus right here. But I believe what we're looking at is, yes, our mouse filter right here. So stop, pass, and ignore all have different settings to them, and essentially when we set it to 2, we're setting it to ignore. And what ignore does is it prevents the mouse from being able to do anything. You can't hover over the button, you can't click on it. Any input that occurs from the mouse will not work on the node that has their mouse filter set to ignore, right? Now you might be thinking, oh, so when I use my controller and I use my mouse, is my mouse not going to work anymore? It's pretty simple. We just need to copy these 3 lines. Oops. Control C, Control V, indent these properly, and then we just need to re-enable the mouse filter back to stop by setting these to 0. And just because I noticed this right now, I forgot to put an L there. We are now going to run the example. Move, you see that, how the mouse hover is gone now? Let's move this down to settings. Let's see if the focus moves when I move the mouse. See that? It goes away. Hover over start. If I move the controller, we've now gotten rid of the focus and the hovering from staying over as constants when we switch over between the mouse and the gamepad now. All right, and with that, that is the example over with. And with the example over with now, we now have a simple input check handler in the example of its usage in the menu. This input check will also work during regular gameplay in any other kinds of menus, as long as you add the proper code to each menu script. Now, how can we expand further upon this code? We can actually make it to where we check the specific type of input device, such as what kind of gamepad controller is in use, whether that is an Xbox, PlayStation, Switch, or generic controller. We can make it to where images of displayed input types for actions change, such as when we use our mouse and keyboard, an image displaying jump as spacebar will be there, but when we switch to using a controller while playing, this icon will change to that of A or X depending on the controller. If you would like me to make a video discussing how to implement these functions, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment down below. With that, we are done with the tutorial. The completed code could be found on my GitHub, which I have a link to down below. Have a nice day.